If you can play this piano, I'll marry you, Billionaire mocked. Black Janitor played like a genius. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across the grand ballroom of the Langford Hotel. Tonight's gala sparkled with elegance. Politicians in tailored suits, billionaires trading whispers, and cameras flashing like fireworks. The atmosphere pulsed with money, power, and quiet competition. At the center of it all stood Preston Wells, the polished host of the evening. With a flawless smile, he lifted the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our gracious sponsor, Rebecca Lang. Applause thundered as Rebecca walked across the marble stage. Dressed in emerald silk, she radiated charm and control, a woman accustomed to owning every room she entered. She paused by the gleaming black piano, and with a mischievous grin, leaned toward the mic. Tell you what, she teased, if anyone here can play this piano flawlessly, I'll marry them tomorrow. The crowd erupted in laughter. Champagne glasses clinked, jokes rippled through the audience. It was a game, a billionaire's AI whimsy, nothing more. From the far corner, unnoticed, a janitor quietly put away his mop. Malik Thompson had been invisible all night, blending into the walls like furniture. But now, he walked steadily toward the piano. Gasps broke the laughter. Jason Mendez, one of the evening's loudest guests, sneered. You lost, janitor? This isn't a subway station. Step away before you embarrass yourself. Malik didn't answer. He sat down, adjusted the bench, and placed his fingers on the keys. At first, snickers rolled through the room. But then the sound shifted. Pure, commanding, alive. The melody soared, carrying pain and beauty in every note. Laughter died. Silence filled the hall. When the final chord rang out, the ballroom exploded. Guests rose to their feet, applauding wildly. Jason Mendez sat frozen, humiliated. The gala ended, but its echo did not fade with the closing of the ballroom doors. One guest, a young journalist with a restless instinct, had quietly pressed record during Malik Thompson's performance. By the next morning, the clip had found its way to social media. A grainy video, shot from the back of the hall, showed a janitor laying down his mop, walking toward a grand piano, and silencing an entire room of billionaires with nothing but his hands. The caption read, "Janitor stuns the elites." By sunrise, the video had crossed 1 million views. By noon, it had crossed 5. Talk shows replayed the performance with gushing commentary. Online forums debated every frame. Some called it proof that genius could bloom anywhere. Others used it to mock the arrogance of the wealthy. And in the middle of it all, Malik's name, once invisible, was now a headline. Rebecca Lang sat in her glass-walled office, overlooking the skyline, watching the clip for the third time in a row. Each replay revealed something new. His precision, his calm under ridicule, the soul in every note. But what caught her most was not his technique. It was his composure. He had faced a room designed to laugh at him, and instead he made it listen. She leaned back, thoughtful, a faint smile tugging at her lips. That, she whispered to herself, is not ordinary. Her assistant entered quietly with a stack of papers. Rebecca waved them aside. Find him, she said simply. The janitor. His name is Malik Thompson. Bring him to me. Malik was still mopping floors the next evening when the summons came. He thought it was a mistake at first, some cruel joke from staff who had seen the viral video. But the black car waiting at the service entrance was real. So was the assistant who spoke politely, addressing him as Mr. Thompson. He followed, uncertain, until he found himself standing outside Rebecca Lang's private office. Polished mahogany doors, gold inlay, and a view that stretched over the city like a painting. Rebecca rose as he entered. Mr. Thompson? She greeted warmly. Please sit. Malik hesitated, clutching his cap in both hands. You must Have the wrong man, he muttered. I am just a janitor. Rebecca's eyes softened. I saw your performance. The world has seen it now. Do you still believe you are just a janitor? Malik shifted uncomfortably in the leather chair, staring at the floor. That is all people will ever see. A man who cleans their shoes, empties their trash, and vanishes when the music ends. Rebecca leaned forward, her voice steady. That is not all I see. I see someone who silenced an entire ballroom with nothing but truth pouring out of his hands. Do you understand how rare that is? He shook his head slowly. I only played. Nothing more. Nothing more? Rebecca repeated, almost sharply. You carried stories in your music. Pain, hope, love. Things no money can buy. That is not nothing, Malik. That is power. Silence stretched between them. Malik's hands tightened around his cap. For a moment he imagined the possibility. Less mopping, more music. But then reality pressed down like chains. Even if I tried, he said finally, what stage would welcome a janitor? People would laugh before I touched the keys. Rebecca's gaze did not waver. Then we will give them no choice but to listen. I can arrange lessons, exposure, sponsorships, but the decision has to come from you. Will you step forward, or will you keep hiding behind that mop? Malik swallowed hard. Her words unsettled him, opening a door he had long kept shut. He wanted to believe her, but fear whispered louder. Ridicule, failure, humiliation. Rebecca did not push further. Instead, she let the silence settle, then spoke with quiet conviction. You have something rare. Do not waste it. Think about what you want your life to be remembered for. Malik rose, uncertain, torn between two worlds, the safety of invisibility and the terrifying promise of transformation. And as he walked out of her office, the war within him had only begun. The headlines refused to fade. Every morning, new articles, reaction videos, and heated debates painted Malik Thompson as either a hidden genius or a passing gimmick. His performance was not just remembered, it was dissected. The world wanted to know if lightning could strike twice. Among the voices rising above the noise, one name carried weight. Jack Callahan, a respected critic whose words could launch or end a career. His article appeared in glossy ink across Sunday editions. Is viral janitor Malik Thompson the real deal, or just a one-hit wonder? Callahan's tone was sharp, deliberate. He acknowledged the power of the viral performance but questioned its authenticity. Was Malik simply lucky, stumbling into brilliance one night? Or did he have the discipline, the artistry, to sustain greatness? The challenge had been laid bare, and the world waited for Malik's answer. In the shadows, another voice stirred. Jason Mendez. The arrogant guest from that night, still stung by humiliation, refused to let the memory fade. Over drinks at 2, private clubs and whispered dinners among the elite, he spread a poisonous rumor that the viral stunt had been staged, that Rebecca Lang had orchestrated the entire moment for attention, and Malik was nothing more than a planted pawn. Jason's words slithered across social media, fueling skepticism, gnawing at the fragile respect Malik had barely begun to earn. For Malik, the noise outside was deafening, but the noise inside his own heart was louder. Every headline, every mocking tweet, every dismissive whisper dragged him back to a place he thought he had escaped. The memories of a boy with calloused fingers pressing down on chipped plastic keys, alone in a church basement. The flashback burned vividly, a cracked keyboard with half its notes dead. The echo of hymns played badly, but with heart. He had taught himself to piece together melodies from broken fragments, his small hands trembling with both hunger and hope. The church had been a sanctuary, but not enough to save his dreams. Poverty silenced him before the world ever heard his song. By 16, he traded music for labor, trading keyboards for brooms, trading stage lights for fluorescent bulbs flickering. In hallways he cleaned. That was why the spotlight terrified him. Talent was never enough. The world could praise you one moment and spit you out the next. It was during this storm of doubt that he crossed paths with Tasha Brooks. She was a widow, her eyes lined with exhaustion from double shifts cleaning hotel rooms. Her son, Daniel Ruiz, no older than 12, clung to her like an anchor. They recognized Malik, not as the janitor who once passed by with a mop, but as the man who had stunned the world with music. Daniel's eyes lit with a kind of hope Malik had not seen in years. "Is it really you?" the boy asked, his voice trembling with awe. "You're the piano guy." Malik wanted to shrink, to insist that he was no one. But Tasha's gentle smile stopped him. She carried her own weight of grief and survival, yet she looked at him as though he was proof that dreams were not dead things. Later that night, in a quiet hotel lounge, Malik sat before a neglected upright piano. He played, not for the internet, not for critics, not for applause. He played for Daniel. The boy sat wide-eyed, his feet barely touching the ground, his small hands clutching the seat in wonder. "When you play," Daniel whispered, when the final note faded, "it feels like the world isn't so heavy." Those words pierced Malik, deeper than any critic's article or Jason's rumor ever could. In that moment, he realized the truth. Music was not just about recognition or status. It was not a weapon to silence doubters or a ladder to climb into wealth. Music was healing. It was the light people carried when their worlds grew too heavy. And if he could give that light to even one person, then his gift was worth embracing. Rebecca Lang saw this shift before Malik himself did. She had been watching, measuring, waiting for the moment when he would stop hiding behind fear. When he returned to her office, still unsure but carrying Daniel's words in his chest, she struck with precision. "You do not need to prove Jason." "Mendez wrong," Rebecca said. "You do not need to answer Jack Callahan with words. Answer them with music." She leaned forward, her voice low but certain. "I secured you a place at the annual Horizons charity concert. The event is televised, broadcast into millions of homes. Every critic will be there, every skeptic, every eye that doubts you will be forced to watch. This is not just another viral clip. This is your chance to step onto a stage where legends are born." Malik's breath caught. The weight of such an opportunity was crushing. A national stage was not just a chance. It was a trial by fire. He would either ascend into recognition or crumble before the world. Rebecca held his gaze. "You have a choice. Hide forever, or rise now." The decision lingered like a cord, unresolved. Malik walked out of her office that night not with certainty, but with a storm raging inside him. The stakes were no longer whispers in corridors. They were roaring, demanding, impossible to ignore. And for the first time, Malik wondered if destiny was not something given, but something claimed. The stage lights burned brighter than Malik had ever imagined. Rows of cameras pointed at him, ready to broadcast his every movement to millions watching at home. The charity concert was no small event. It was the kind of stage that could either crown a career or crush it before it began. But Malik could not move. His fingers hovered over the keys like they were frozen in midair. Sweat gathered on his forehead, his chest tightened. Inside his head, an old chorus of voices returned, the hotel guests laughing, Jason mocking, people whispering behind his back. "He is just a janitor. What is he doing here?" The sound of his own breathing grew louder than the crowd. The grand piano in front of him, instead of inviting, looked like a mountain he could never climb. Then, like poison dripping into his ear, Jason's voice cut through the air. Jason had slipped backstage just before the rehearsal and leaned close enough for Malik to hear only him. "You'll always be a janitor," Jason hissed, a cruel smirk tugging at his lips. "No matter how many cameras point at you, people will never see more than the man with a mop." The words were sharp, heavy, and Malik felt them settle like chains around his chest. Jason walked away satisfied, his footsteps echoing down the corridor while Malik stood trembling in silence. Rebecca noticed from the wings. She had been watching closely, sensing the hesitation, the shadow creeping over Malik's spirit. But she knew the final push could not come from her alone. Tasha and Daniel appeared, having been invited by Rebecca, as special guests. They had hurried across the city, Daniel clutching something tightly in his small hands. When Malik saw them, his eyes softened, though his shoulders were still tense. Tasha stepped closer, her voice firm but kind. "You are not just playing for strangers tonight," she said. "You are playing for him." She touched her son's shoulder gently. "He sees you. He believes in you." Daniel opened his hands, revealing the little drawing he had carried all the way. On it was a simple piano sketched with a child's care, and above the keys, shaky letters spelled out, "Play for the world." Malik stared at the drawing. The paper was wrinkled, the pencil marks uneven, yet it carried more power than any headline or viral video. His throat tightened. Daniel looked up at him with wide eyes, filled with hope. "When you play," Daniel whispered, "it feels like the world isn't so heavy." The words cracked something open inside Malik. He knelt down, hugging Daniel tightly, holding the drawing like it was a priceless gift. Rebecca stepped forward then, her expression softer than the public ever saw. She crouched so her eyes were level with Malik's, her voice steady. "Do you think I have never been laughed at?" she asked. "When I first entered the world of business, every boardroom was filled with men who thought I was a joke. They mocked me for daring to stand in their space. They called me unfit, too emotional, too weak. But I made them listen, not with anger, not with pride, but with results they could never ignore." Malik searched her eyes. For the first time, he saw not the untouchable billionaire, but a woman who had walked through fire of her own. "They laughed at me too, Malik," she said, her hand resting gently on his arm. "Until I made them hear my voice. Now it is your turn. Not just for me, not just for them, for you." Silence filled the backstage hall. Malik inhaled deeply, closed his eyes, and felt the weight of every word. Slowly he stood. His hands no longer shook. He looked down at Daniel, who gave him a brave nod, then at Rebecca, whose eyes carried fierce conviction. The moment had come. Malik wiped the tears from his cheeks, tucked the child's drawing into his jacket pocket, and walked toward the stage. The audience was restless. Some whispered, others checked their phones. They had heard rumors, they had seen clips, but many were still skeptical. Could a janitor truly belong on such a stage? The cameras adjusted their focus. The announcer's voice faded, and Malik Thompson, the man the world had once overlooked, lowered himself onto the piano bench. For a breath, he did not move. The crowd grew silent, waiting for either brilliance or disaster. Then, with Daniel's words echoing in his heart and Rebecca's strength anchoring his spirit, Malik placed his fingers on the keys. This time, he was not playing to prove Jason wrong. He was not playing to silence the critics. He was playing for the world and for himself. The first note rang out, rich and trembling, and the entire hall leaned in as if the air itself had been pulled toward the sound. The first notes trembled, uncertain, as Malik's fingers touched the piano keys. His hands shook, his chest tightened, and for a moment the hall seemed to lean in, waiting to see if he would fail. But then, with a steady breath, Malik closed his eyes and let the music guide him. The melody rose, soft at first, like a whisper of old memories, nights spent practicing on a broken keyboard in a church basement, dreams he once thought were impossible. The room shifted. Laughter faded into silence. Each note carried weight. Stories of struggle, of being overlooked, of holding on to hope when the world offered none. The sound was raw, imperfect in places, but filled with a depth that no training could manufacture. Faces in the audience began to change. A woman in the front row dabbed at her eyes. A politician, usually stone-faced, leaned forward with unguarded emotion. Rebecca's smile glowed with pride. Her hands clasped tightly as if she knew this was not just music, it was a declaration. Jason, standing in the shadows at the back, shifted uneasily. His smirk was gone. He folded his arms, but the music pressed against him too, unraveling the armor of arrogance he carried. The cameras captured every angle. The live stream chat, projected backstage, exploded with comments. "This is not a performance, it's a confession. He's playing every heartbreak I've ever felt. How can someone with nothing give us something this powerful?" Critic Jack Callahan, who had once dismissed Malik as a viral fluke, sat frozen with his notebook, half open. His pen did not move at first. Then, with trembling urgency, he scribbled, "The soul pianist America didn't know it needed." The music swelled. Malik's shoulders straightened, his fingers dancing with newfound courage. He was no longer just a janitor at a luxury hotel. He was an artist standing before the world, refusing to be unseen. When the last note lingered and faded into the vast silence of the hall, the audience erupted. Applause thundered through the room, people rising to their feet in unison, clapping, cheering, some crying openly. The ovation stretched on and on, refusing to let him go. Malik stood, tears glistening in his eyes. He stepped to the microphone, his voice steady, though his heart raced. "Talent does not come with a title or a suit," he began. The hall quieted, every eye on him. "It can come from anywhere, even from a janitor's broom closet. For years I believed my gift did not matter because of where I came from, because of how people looked at me. But I was wrong. What matters is not hiding it. What matters is sharing it, because music, passion, whatever your gift may be, can change lives." His words struck harder than the music itself. The crowd erupted again, cameras flashing, live stream comments pouring like a flood. Across the country, viewers sat glued to their screens, feeling as if they had witnessed not just a performance, but a revelation. Rebecca's eyes shone with tears, her applause the loudest in the room. Daniel clutched his mother's hand, whispering with awe, "That's my hero." And even Jack Callahan, pen shaking in his hand, admitted to himself that he had underestimated greatness. In that moment, Malik was no longer invisible. He was unforgettable. The standing ovation seemed endless. People clapped until their hands ached, until their voices cracked from cheering. Malik stood in the center of the stage, overwhelmed, humbled, yet glowing with a quiet strength. By the time the final applause settled, his name was already trending worldwide. #Soul Pianist filled every corner of social media. Rebecca Lang stepped to the podium, her voice ringing with both pride and purpose. "Tonight we witnessed more than music. We witnessed courage. And to honor that spirit, I am establishing the Malik Thompson Scholarship Fund to give underprivileged children the chance to study music, no matter where they come from." The room erupted once again, cameras flashing as journalists rushed to capture her words. Malik lowered his head, tears forming, realizing that his story was already beginning to change others. Meanwhile, Jason Mendez slipped quietly toward the exit. The same man who had mocked Malik hours earlier now found himself avoided by the crowd. Whispers followed him, sharp and unforgiving. His arrogance had been exposed, and his presence no longer commanded attention. By the time he reached the doors, not a single person cared enough to stop him. Across the city, newspapers went to print. Jack Callahan's article led the headlines. Malik Thompson, the janitor who played his way into history. In his piece, Jack described Malik's performance as a raw, unfiltered truth that reminded us all what art is meant to be, a mirror of the human soul. In a small apartment, Tasha Brooks and her son Daniel sat glued to the television, watching the replay. Daniel's eyes sparkled with pride as he tugged on his mother's arm. "That's my friend, Mama. That's Mr. Malik." Tasha smiled through tears, knowing her son had seen proof that dreams were possible, no matter how unlikely. A final montage painted the legacy. Malik teaching children at a community center, small hands learning to press the keys under his guidance. Rebecca sitting beside him at concerts, not as a billionaire patron, but as a friend. A viral clip of Malik's speech circling the globe, translated into dozens of languages, echoing across continents. Talent can't be silenced. Passion can't be swept away. When given the chance, even a janitor can play a note that changes the world.